I'd like to explain something about levels of consciousness. Now, most people may not really think about levels of consciousness much. And that usually means that you're at a specific level of consciousness and you do not want to examine other levels of consciousness. And the Buddhist and the Hindu traditions have mapped out levels of consciousness far more intricately than anything in Western thought, at least to the outer world. All the secret traditions have their own methodologies of playing with consciousness. And I bring this up because it's something that is rarely spoken about in the narrative of the media when interpreting our world. And that our world is interpreted very differently from different levels of consciousness. It's like different frequencies on the spectrum of light. Some, infrared we can't see, but normal color that we can. It's because of having different frequencies. And so when you have different frequencies of thought, it's the same as having different levels of consciousness. And so different people think about life differently than other people. And there's a man, Ken Wilber, who created this integral theory where there's a spiral. And at different levels of the spiral, there are different levels of consciousness. And what is the main distinguisher between the levels of consciousness is the duality between the individual and the collective. And so one level of consciousness is going to be focused on the individual over here, then another, as you go up one level, it becomes the collective. And then you go up another level, it goes back to the individual. And then you go up a level, it goes up to the collective. You go up a level, it goes up to the individual. So the relationship between the individual and the collective is the reference point for what creates the levels of consciousness. So this is pretty important to realize because we're looking at the basic distinctions of language and what makes us think different. And so there's certain people that are in certain groups that are very tribal and they're very inclusive and they see everyone else as enemies. That's a certain level of consciousness that individuals who aren't really part of any tribe, who just like having their own life and don't really want to get involved in anything. Compared to a group of people that's very loving, very inclusive within their own group and very connected and inclusive with other groups. Versus another individual who can move between groups, likes all groups, but is the person who can sort of distinguish the difference between the groups, is very interested in them but doesn't want to participate. Now, you, as an individual, is in one of these levels of consciousness. And the higher levels care about the inside world and how your mind works and why you're in a certain way of thinking. So the higher levels, let's say, can use these levels of consciousness map to interpret, understand, and maybe help these different people at different levels. But the lower levels, they're not interested. They're just interested in their world. And so supposedly, let's say as you go higher and higher in development, you integrate, because each level has something good in it. You got to live it and be it, and then you sort of integrate it and go up to the next level. And so consciousness is on a progression, let's say, of that's how we get more and more integrated, and that's how we get more and more, let's say, advanced. But every level of consciousness is looking at every other level as kind of crazy or it's kind of off. We tend to like to hang out with the people that are vibrating at the same vibe that we're at. So this is really important to understand or to know, because if you're doing any type of activist work or you're doing any type of healing work for the planet or for people, you have to understand all the different demographics or all the different subgroups or all the different ways that human beings can sort of be categorically organized. And how people are categorically organized almost defines the level of consciousness that you're at. So that's just a little note to people that I think might be good to know.